He's not sure. They offered a hybrid. No, but I had some friends. Oh, watching.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, everyone. This meeting is called to order. Mr. Trillman, has anyone signed up for public comment?
Good morning, Commissioners. We have 4 individuals who would like to address the commission when we get to item number 12.
12, thank you. All right. Good morning, Ms.
Thank
Miller.
you. Good morning, sir.
We have no cases to reconsider under agenda item 3.
Correct, no cases.
Let's consider tax liability cases under agenda item 4. I believe we have 3 tax cases on docket 6.
Yes, sir, there are 3 cases. The first is TD-21-008-0421. Commissioner Demerson,
The last one is 0421.
0421.
Okay, I agree with staff recommendation.
Thank you. Commissioner Albert.
I agree with staff's recommendation.
Mr. Chairman,
I agree with staff recommendation.
the second case is TD-21-033-1021. Commissioner Demerson,
I agree with staff recommendation that the employer's motion for reconsideration should be granted, that the due date for the tax payment should be extended, and that the interest owed should be modified. The employer tried its best to pay the TWC UI tax on time, but its effort was stymied by the unanticipated action of another state in depositing the check meant for TWC into the Florida State Fund. The employer acted in good faith all along, and so its abatement request should be granted.
I agree with staff's recommendation.
I agree with staff recommendation.
thank you. And the final case is TD 21-042-1221. Commissioner Dimerson.
Agree with staff recommendation.
Commissioner
I agree with
Alvarez.
staff recommendation.
Agree with staff recommendation.
Thank you, gentlemen.
No fair housing cases under agenda item 5.
Correct.
Under agenda item 6, we have one wage claim case on docket 6 pulled for additional discussion.
Yes, sir. It is case number 20-057991-7. Commissioner Dimerson.
We should hold a rehearing in this case to allow the parties to offer testimony and documentary evidence establishing whether the claimant worked a full-time schedule between May 26th and August 24th, 2020, as he claimed during the hearing. The hearing officer continued the appeal hearing, the claimant, and not given an opportunity to submit the detailed work logs that he alleged he kept, but the claimant did not submit such records to the employer and the hearing officer as instructed. Based on the current records, we do not have sufficient evidence of work performance to support a finding that the claimant worked full-time between May 26th and August 24th, 2020. Accordingly, we should hold a rehearing to obtain additional information from both parties regarding the work that the claimant actually performed.
Ms. Miller, I would agree with Commissioner Demerson with the rehearing on this case.
Modify the AT timely petition to reopen employer established good cause for WCAT 1 wage claim timely in part. Wages owed $72,884.63.
The majority vote is to rehear the case.
Ms. Miller, I would like to change my vote. I would agree with Chairman Daniel on this case.
Thank you. Then we will not rehear the case. Commissioner-
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And that was the only pulled wage claim case for docket 6. You should have received the UI wage claim short form dissent list.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining wage claim cases on docket 6.
Chairman, I second the motion except for those cases of which I'm dissenting as reflected on the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 6.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected in the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 6.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move to agenda item 7, consideration of unemployment insurance cases on docket 6. Please proceed when you're ready.
Case number 2613087. Commissioner Alvarez.
The claimant is the only party to provide firsthand testimony. The claimant contacted the employer the next business day after his client was admitted to the hospital to inform them of the situation and to ask for additional work. The employer did not respond the first day and informed him no work was available after responding the second day. Although the employer contends the claimant should have called the next calendar day, they admit they were not open the next 2 calendar days after the claimant's client was admitted to the hospital. The claimant notified the employer as soon as possible and was told there was no available work. As such, the claimant was laid off due to a lack of work. Reverse the AT, set aside the first and second appeal tribunal hearings, void the June 11, 2020 determination, reinstate the May 6, 2020 determination, no misconduct, chargeback, void adequate response.
First, the AT1 and AT2 decision should be set aside. The June 11, 2020 determination should be voided, and the May 6, 2020 determination should be reinstated and reversed. Regarding the job separation in the home healthcare referral industry, the employment relationship continues until one party clearly notifies the other that the employment relationship has ended. In the case before us, the claimant notified the employer that the working relationship ended, but not meeting the requirements of the employer's reassignment policy. As such, the claimant quit without work-connected good cause. We should therefore set aside the AT1 and AT2 decision, void the June 11, 2020 determination, reinstate the May 6, 2020 determination, in reverse, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Can you read back to Commissioner Alvarez's vote, please?
Yes, sir. What I have documented is void the original void the 6/11/20 determination, set aside both appeal tribunal decisions, reinstate the 5/6/20 determination, and reverse MCOO, so no misconduct, layoff, CBXX, employer charged, and void adequate response.
I would concur with that vote.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir.
Case number 2753872, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision is not supportable. The documents available to the first tribunal established the claimant is eligible for PUA benefits. In addition to the claimant's fact-finding statements indicating his work closed as a result of the pandemic, the employer submitted a letter of explaining that the claimant worked for him from April 13, 2020 to April 18, 2020, at which time the claimant was separated because the employer was no longer able to pay as a result of the pandemic-related job losses. The claimant is eligible for PUA benefits, and his claim should be backdated to April 19, 2020. Modify the AT, no good cause, PUA eligible beginning April 19, 2020. In the alternative, I would agree to grant good cause as a claimant called in late due to the confusion from the resetting of the first hearing. Consideration of the claimant's testimony at the second hearing further supports finding the claimant is eligible for PUA benefits beginning April 19, 2020.
The AT decision is partially supportable. The claimant misread the hearing notice for the second setting of the first hearing and did not have good cause to miss that hearing. Despite the lack of good cause for missing the hearing, the claimant is entitled to a review of the evidence concerning the PUA eligibility issue that was available to the claim investigator. The record of the investigation into the regular and PUA claims indicates that the claimant stopped working in early 2020 because the only customer of his self-employment venture became unable to pay him for any further work after the customer's own pandemic-related loss. That is sufficiently direct connection to the pandemic to qualify the claimant as a PUA eligible individual. In addition, such a finding would be consistent with the Commission's decision in prior PUA appeals dealing with a loss of customers for small self-employment ventures. Accordingly, we should modify the AT decision. The claimant did not have good cause to miss the first hearing. The claimant was a qualified individual under the PUA program beginning on August 30, 2020.
Claimant established good cause for AT1. Rehear.
All right, we have a majority vote that the claimant established good cause, but not yet on what happens after that. Commissioner Alvarez voted simply to reverse, and Mr. Chairman, you voted to rehear. So since we haven't achieved a majority vote, we're not prepared to take action yet until a majority is achieved.
Ms. Miller, I would agree with Chairman Daniel.
We will rehear the case. Thank you.
Case number 2801181, Commissioner Alvarez.
The claimant had a 2-year-old child with chronic respiratory issues, and her doctor recommended for her child not to attend daycare. The claimant did not have anyone else available to work after her child or look after her child. The claimant had already exhausted all her paid leave under FMLA before the employer insisted that she return to work in person. Whether or not the claimant would have theoretically chosen to apply for any further leave, the evidence in the record established that any such leave would, in any case, have been unpaid. As the claimant's separation was caused by the need, I should say, to care for her minor child who had a medically verified illness, the claimant's disqualification should be reversed. Reverse the AT, no voluntary leaving, MBI, and bill employer.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant was advised to apply for unpaid FMLA or to return to in-person work for the employer. The employer provided sworn testimony that the claimant's unpaid leave would have taken her through the end of the school year, which she would have had reasonable assurance to return the following school year. Claimant did not accept the unpaid FMLA due to financial concerns and thereafter quit due to the lack of childcare. Since the claimant was afforded the opportunity for continued employment, but thereafter quit due to a lack of childcare, a personal reason unrelated to work, the claimant's actions constituted a voluntary quit without good cause connected with the work. Hence, we should affirm the appeal tribunal decision, voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed.
Affirm the AT, voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2895977, Commissioner Alvarez,
Correction,
Is 2864497 in there?
case
is
number
correct. Sorry.
2864497, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be reversed. The claimant was notified by an employer representative that his assignment had ended. The claimant testified that the employer representative stated that the claimant would receive a call back regarding the next steps, but this call never happened. While the employer had a reporting policy, the claimant was specifically told by the representative that the next steps was to wait for a call and the employer declined to provide rebuttal testimony. Additionally, the employer's availability log for the entire month of June was blank, which cast doubt on the employer's contention that they required employees to sign the log. As the employer's representative told the claimant to wait for a call, the claimant complied with the reporting policy as it was explained to him, and he was separated due to a lack of work. Reverse AT, no misconduct, chargeback, and void adequate response.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. The employer's policy required employees to come in and sign the employer's availability log upon completion of a work assignment. Although the claimant asserted that he did not remember getting the employer's availability policy, the employer provided the claimant signed acknowledgement of the policy. Since the preponderance of the evidence suggests that the claimant was aware of the employer's policy, but thereafter failed to abide by its terms, his conduct constituted a voluntary quit without work-connected good cause. Therefore, we should modify the appeal tribunal decision, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, sever the adequate employer response issue.
Modify the AT, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, sever adequate response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
case number 2895977, Commissioner Alvarez,
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant worked for the employer overseas on a base that was shutting down. The claimant had been notified that he was on the manifest to leave the base in a week and then he would be let go. The claimant quit a week early because he felt ill and believed he had COVID. There was no way on the base to take a COVID test, and there was no doctor on the base to treat him. Commission precedents have long held that a party who leaves the job within the 2 weeks of the employment does not change the nature of the separation. The claimant decided to leave the job a week early before his effective layoff date. He did not thereby change the separation from the involuntary separation to a voluntary one. The claimant was involuntarily separated for reasons other than misconduct connected with the work. Modify the AT, no misconduct, chargeback. If my fellow commissioners do not agree that this was an involuntary separation, I would also agree to a vote that the claimant was separated under urgent, compelling, and necessary circumstances. Modify the AT, no voluntary leaving, urgent, compelling, and no chargeback.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. Although the claimant provided multiple reasons for his resignation, he was unable to properly substantiate any of his claims. First, the claimant alleged that dangers associated with war zones was the reason for his resignation. It is reasonable to deduce that the dangers were an expected part of the claimant's job duties. Hence, an early resignation did not eliminate the risk. Second, the claimant failed to produce evidence to substantiate his claim that COVID-19 was uncontrolled at the workplace, other than alleging that others at the workplace were getting sick. Furthermore, the claimant himself did not test positive for COVID-19, nor did he allege that COVID-19 was the primary reason for his resignation. Finally, the claimant alleged that he quit to be with his ill mother. Although this may constitute good personal reasons to quit, it did not constitute good cause connected with the work for quitting. As the preponderance of the evidence suggests that the claimant quit due to fears associated with the workplace and personal reasons unrelated to work, he did not have good cause connected with the work to quit. Therefore, we should affirm the appeal tribunal decision, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
Affirm the AT, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
case number 2912845, Commissioner Alvarez,
The decision should be modified. The claimant lacked childcare and was ineligible for benefits beginning January 31st, 2021. However, she arranged for childcare shortly thereafter and began calling TWC in February of 2021 to provide additional information. She wasn't able to speak to anyone at the time, so she faxed the agency on February 18, 2021 to inform us that she had arranged for childcare. Therefore, since the claimant found childcare and provided proof that she has informed TWC of her childcare arrangements on February 18, 2021, her ineligibility should be closed effective February 20th, 2021. Modify the AT, claimant unavailable and ineligible for PEUC benefits beginning January 31st, 2021, but close the ineligibility effective February 20th, 2021.
The current record is insufficient for a decision at this point. The claimant offered consistent testimony regarding her difficulty in reaching TWC concerning her availability and childcare issues. I note that the UI Division daily reports from the date of the claimant's appeal of February 18, 2021, and additional correspondence of March 26, 2021 indicate that callers to TWC's telecenters heard the deflect or call volume message 134,985 times and 206,327 times respectively on those dates. Since the call volume issues in early 2021 for both claimants and the employers are fairly well documented, I'm willing to allow the claimant an additional opportunity to offer specific testimony and phone records regarding her attempts to contact the commission during the period from February to early June 2021. Accordingly, we should hold a rehearing to obtain testimony and documentation about the claimant's specific efforts to contact the commission regarding her availability and the childcare issues during that time frame.
I concur with Commissioner Demerson.
We will rehear the case.
Case number 2931532. Commissioner Demerson.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision. After being laid off at the beginning of the pandemic, the claimant was recalled to work at the same position, location, pay, and hours as before. The claimant agreed to go back to work and was placed on the schedule for the next week. However, she did not return. The claimant felt that returning to work would not be safe, but did not establish any reasons that would constitute good cause for her refusal. Accordingly, we should reverse the AT decision. The claimant rejected an offer of suitable work. In the alternative, we could rehear this case to better develop the record on whether members of the claimant's household would be considered high-risk individuals based on agency guidance in effect at that time regarding good cause to refuse offers of suitable work.
The decision is supportable. The employer sent a general message to employees that they would be reopening with limited hours and that employees should contact them. This offer is not sufficient to justify disqualification under section 207.047 of the Act. Affirm the AT suitable work eligible.
Reverse the AT, suitable work disqualification.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2960204. Commissioner Demerson.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant was terminated for violating the employer's attendance policy. The employer required its employees to clock into work no earlier than 5 minutes prior to the start of a shift and no later than the start of a shift. The claimant was aware of the employer's rule and had received various prior warnings for clocking in later than the start of his shift. Although the claimant suggested that the employer's policy was unreasonable as he was only late to clock in by 1 minute, this argument is not persuasive. The record reflects that the employer allowed sufficient time for the employees to clock in before the start of their shift, hence negating the unreasonableness of the employer's policy. Since the claimant was aware of the repercussions associated with being tardy, but thereafter continued to clock in late in violation of the employer's policy, his actions constituted misconduct connected with the work. Hence, we should reverse the appeal tribunal decision. Misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
The decision should be affirmed. The claimant was employed for over a year and was tardy 3 times. However, in 2 of those occurrences, including the final incident, the claimant was only a minute late and was in the process of clocking in when the time changed. Under these circumstances, the employer's policy is unreasonable and the employer has not shown misconduct. Affirm the AT valid claim, no misconduct, chargeback.
Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Demerson.
Case number 2977585. Commissioner Demerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be modified. The claimant was discharged due to poor job performance. Claimant had been given a performance improvement plan that described what standards and metrics the claimant needed to meet in order to retain her job. However, the claimant stated that it was very difficult to reach the employer's standards due to the challenges that COVID presented to her job. As such, the claimant should continue to be qualified for benefits, and the employer's account should be protected from charge due to COVID disaster. We should therefore modify the AT decision, valid claim, no misconduct, no chargeback, disaster.
Ms. Miller, I would agree with Commissioner Demerson.
Agreed.
Because the claimant is not disqualified, it would be appropriate to void the adequate response ruling in the AT decision.
I
Say that
agree.
again.
The appeal tribunal decision found the employer provided adequate response. Since the claimant will not be disqualified, the adequate response ruling, something needs to be done with it, and it would be appropriate to void it.
Okay, that's fine.
And commissioners, yes,
I
sir.
agree.
And we'll void that ruling. Thank you.
Case number 2981651, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be reversed. Both parties testified the claimant was discharged. Therefore, the separation should be treated as a discharge. The claimant began working remotely in March of 2020 due to the pandemic, and because her son was going through cancer treatment, which put him at high risk. The claimant then returned to working, the claimant then returned to working 2 days in the office before transitioning to fully in-person to work in January of 2021. The claimant contracted COVID in March of 2021, and the caregiver who was looking after the claimant's mother also contracted COVID. Due to the lack of a caregiver, the claimant was allowed to work remotely again. The claimant was asked to return to work. However, she struggled to find a caregiver. She testified she was finally able to secure a caregiver in August of 2021, but shortly after informing the employer of her expected return date, the employer informed the claimant that they had found a replacement, and August 30th, 2021 would be her last day. As the employer was unable to provide a reason for needing the claimant to return to the office, and there was no discernible difference in her work or performance while working remotely, the claimant's inability to secure a caregiver more quickly was not misconduct. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, no overpayment, and void chargeback because the employer filed a late response.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant resigned because she was unable to return to full-time in-person work for the employer. The claimant was aware and was on notice by the employer that she had 30 days to find a caretaker for her mother, and thereafter returned to work to in-person work. When the claimant failed to find a caretaker within the allotted 30-day period, her position was advertised and the claimant was subsequently replaced. Since the record dictates that the claimant was aware and it was in agreement with the employer that she would be replaced due to her inability to find a caretaker, the claimant did not have good cause for quitting. As such, the claimant's actions constituted voluntary leaving without good cause connected with the work. Hence, we should modify the appeal tribunal decision, voluntary leaving, void the chargeback ruling, overpayment of $535.
Modify the AT, voluntary leaving, void chargeback, overpayment.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2983988, Commissioner Alvarez.
The claimant's motion for rehearing should be granted. The claimant was separated from his job with the Air Force because he was not allowed to re-enlist with the Army Reserves, which was a condition of his employment. The claimant was presented new evidence that he appealed the decision to not allow him to re-enlist in the reserves, won his appeal, and was granted permission to re-enlist in the reserves. This is new evidence that indicates that the decision not to allow his re-enlistment was a mistake. The denial of his re-enlistment was the direct cause of the employer's decision to discharge him from his job. The claimant had a compelling reason for not previously offering the new evidence insofar as the appeal process of his re-enlistment was completed after his AT hearing. He thus did not have the evidence until recently. The claimant has met the requirements for his MR to be granted.
Claimant's motion should be denied. The claimant has not satisfied the required criteria for a successful MR and accordingly, it should be denied. Deny the claimant's motion for hearing.
Deny the motion for rehearing.
Maintain dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2996126, Commissioner Dimerson.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. While the record in this case focused on events that happened in May 2021, the job separation occurred months earlier. The claimant stopped performing services for pay in February when she went on approved FMLA leave. Because the separation resulted from the claimant's medical condition, the claimant should be qualified for benefits and the employer's account should be protected from charge under medical separation analysis. Consequently, the overpayment should be reversed. Accordingly, we should modify the AT decision, no voluntary leaving, no chargeback, MVI, no overpayment.
Ms. Miller, I would agree with Commissioner Dimerson.
Agree.
Thank you. We have unanimous decision.
Case number 3024163, Commissioner Dimerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be reversed. The employer first became aware that the claimant had filed for unemployment when it received a voicemail from the Texas Workforce Commission. The voicemail alerted the employer of the deadline to respond. The employer continually tried to respond to the voicemail, but was not able to get through or leave a voicemail. Accordingly, since the employer was trying to respond to the claim in a manner it felt was consistent with what was left on the voicemail from the Texas Workforce Commission, its protest should be considered timely. We should therefore reverse the AT decision, timely employer protest, resubmit.
The decision should be affirmed. The employer was sent the notice of initial claim on January 12th of 2021, and the employer's protest was due on January 26th of 2021. The employer filed a late protest on February 8th, 2021. The employer provided the commission with the address where the commission sent the employer's notice of initial claim. If the employer did not receive the notice in a timely manner, it was due to the employer's failure to timely update their address with the commission. As there is no good cause exception to the timeliness rule, the employer protest to the notice of initial claim was late. Affirm the 18 late employer protest.
Affirm the AT, late employer protest.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Dimerson.
Case number 3024427, Commissioner Dimerson.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision regarding timeliness. The employer credibly testified that it did not receive the notice of maximum potential chargeback. The employer first learned about the chargeback in question in July 2021, which corresponds to when TWC sent employers the 2021 tax rate notices. Because the employer did not receive the notice of maximum potential chargeback, we should reverse the AT decision, deem the employer's response to the notice of maximum potential chargeback timely, and resubmit the case for merits testimony.
The decision should be affirmed. The employer was mailed the notice of maximum potential chargeback on April 27th of 2020 at the address provided by the employer. The document was not returned to the commission. The employer's protest to the notice was due on May 27th of 2020. The employer's protest was filed over a year later on August 3rd, 2021. The employer provided the commission with the address where the commission sent the employer's notice. If the employer did not receive the notice in a timely manner, it was due to the employer's failure to timely update their address with the commission. As there is no good cause exception to the timeliness rule, the employer's protest was late. Affirm the AT, late employer protest.
Reverse the AT, timely protest to notice of maximum potential chargeback, resubmit.
We'll resubmit this case.
Case number 3024724, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision is not supportable. The employer failed to appear at the AT hearing to offer evidence. The claimant provided credible testimony disputing the employer's allegations that he violated the employer's attendance policy or was a no-show for a scheduled shift. He provided documentation showing that he was not scheduled to work on October 10th of 2021, which was the final incident alleged by the employer. While the claimant did not specifically address the employer's allegations for October 9, 2021 in his AT testimony, the claimant's testimony specifically addressed the final incident. and more serious accusation on October 10th of 2021. The claimant's prior statements indicate that he left work early on October 9th, 2021 with permission from his supervisor. The hearing officer failed to follow up on these statements in the AT hearing, and his failure should not now be held against the claimant. The employer failed to meet its burden to establish misconduct by credible and persuasive evidence. I reverse the AT no misconduct chargeback.
The commission should grant a rehearing in this case. The appeal tribunal failed to admit relevant documents into evidence concerning the claimant's job separation. These include the claimant's prior corrective action documents, employee status reports, and information concerning updates to employee schedules. As these documents are relevant to establish whether the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with the work, we should rehear this case to admit and review the additional evidence.
Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Short form dissent.
I have your short form dissent, Commissioner Davidson.
Case number 3029607, Commissioner Alvarez.
This case should be reheard on the timeliness of the claimant's appeal to the commission. The claimant alleged in his appeal that the address in the commission records was incorrect. The claimant has made an allegation which, if true, could result in the appeal being considered timely. Rehear the case on timeliness.
The claimant's commission appeal should be dismissed as late. The claimant filed his appeal beyond the applicable deadline to do so, and there are no good cause exceptions to the timeliness rules. As such, we should dismiss the claimant's commission's appeal as late and leave the underlying decision in full force and effect. Invalid claim, void the job separation ruling, void the no chargeback ruling.
Rehear.
We will rehear the case.
Case number 3029951, Commissioner Alvarez.
Although the employer alleged numerous behavioral issues on the claimant's part, the incidents described did not include any specific infractions, and there was nothing that rose to the level of mismanagement of his position of employment. Also, while the employer vaguely alleged a decline in the claimant's performance level, the employer did not present any testimony or evidence of any specific performance metrics or how the claimant's performance actually changed over time. Under these circumstances, the employer failed to carry its burden of proving that the claimant was discharged for misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback, void AR.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. While the final incident leading to discharge was not fully explored in testimony, the documentary evidence established that on his last day, the claimant refused to answer any phone calls and loudly commented that if anyone wanted him to work, they would hire him as secretary. When approached by management about this behavior and asked if he would be willing to improve, the claimant refused. Because the employer had previously warned the claimant about his behavior and work performance, the claimant's subsequent outbursts and refusal to change his behavior constituted mismanagement of his position of employment. We should modify the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, sever the adequate response issue.
Modify the AT, misconduct, no chargeback, sever adequate response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 3031635, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision is not supportable. The employer previously purchased the claimant's business and hired him to work for the employer. The employer alleged that the claimant was insubordinate in the final meeting with the claimant, but they did not provide any specific testimony as to how he was insubordinate. The claimant the claimant certainly disagreed with the direction of the company and voiced that disagreement in the final meeting. However, merely disagreeing with your employer does not constitute misconduct. The employer has not provided credible evidence that the claimant refused any specific direction or was otherwise unprofessional, abusive, or threatening. Based on the testimony in the hearing, it was apparent that the claimant and the employer simply did not see eye to eye in how to run the business. This is certainly a valid reason for the employer to decide to part ways, but it does not in itself constitute misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback, and void adequate response.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. Although the claimant had once owned the business and may have had a lot of experience, he was now an employee. At a meeting to discuss the changes the employer wanted to make to the company and its management, the claimant became argumentative, disrespectful, and insubordinate. By refusing to cooperate with the new ownership, leadership, and direction, the claimant mismanaged his position of employment. We should modify the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, sever the adequate response issue.
Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback, void, adequate response.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Jamerson. And that was the last UI case pulled for additional discussion on docket 6. You should have received the UI short form dissent list for docket 6.
I'll move to accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 6.
And Chairman, I second the motion except for those cases in which I'm dissenting as reflected on the UI short form dissent list for docket 6.
Now I concur with the chairman's motion, except for those cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected in the UI short form dissent list for docket 6.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. This brings us to the end of agenda items 3 through 7. We're going to take a short break.
We didn't specify what we wanted. Do you want me to email you what we want covered in here? I think we need another. How are y'all?
Let's come back with agenda item 8. It's a policy concept to amend chapter 807 career schools and colleges to post for public comment.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Jimerson, and Mr. Townsend. For the record, Carrie Ballast, Workforce Development Division. Commissioners, before you today for your consideration for approval is a policy concept relating to potential rule amendments to Chapter 807, Career Schools and Colleges. The purpose for the proposed rule is to implement House Bill 33, passed by the 87th Texas Legislature regular session, and to amend Chapter 807 based on a thorough review of the existing rules of Texas Education Code, Chapter 132, of policy implementation and of application processing. Staff recommends amending Chapter 807 to implement House Bill 33, to update definitions, and to clarify language and streamline processes for school actions, including applying for original certificates of approval and for subsequent renewals, meeting financial requirements, meeting school staffing requirements, conducting externships, adhering to advertising requirements, maintaining student records, adhering to cancellation and refund policies, responding to student complaints. For our truck driving schools, we're also needing to amend to ensure compliance with federal regulations. And finally, for closing schools. The proposed rules will also remove some sanctions concerning late renewal fees and will differentiate between the terms agency and commission. This concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions or comments?
Just here, Carrie. Thank you for the update.
Thanks.
No questions.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the policy concept for Chapter 807 career schools and colleges and post to the TWC website for 3-week informal public comment period.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We're unanimous. Thank you. This is agenda item 9, policy favor to approve proposed amendments to Chapter 808 Youth Driver Education Funding Program for publication in the Texas Registry.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Dennison, Mr. Townsend. For the record, I'm Ben Holtz with the Workforce Development Division. Commissioners, before you today for consideration and for your consideration and approval are proposed rules relating to the creation of a new Chapter 808 Youth Drivers Education Funding Program. In an open meeting on October 19th, 2021, the Commission approved a related policy concept and directed staff to draft proposed rules that are before you today. Staff also posted the policy concept for 3 weeks to solicit input from local workforce development boards, and no comments were received. The proposed Chapter 808 will implement Senate Bill 2054 passed by the 87th Texas Legislature to provide financial support for eligible individuals' driver's education and driver's tests from a fund managed by DPS. TWC will administer the program and DPS will transfer funds to TWC. The proposed rules as presented today include 2 subchapters. The first lays out eligibility for the funds and the second lays out the application process requirements for funding. Eligible individuals include all those eligible for the driver's license fee waiver and anyone under 26 years of age who is in a managing conservatorship on the day before their 18th birthday or is homeless child or youth. Eligible individuals will apply to TWC, and the fee for the test or driver's education will be paid directly to the provider. Staff recommends submitting these proposed rules for publication in the Texas Register for a 30-day public comment period. Staff also requests the ability to make minor, non-substantive changes to the document in order to comply with the publication requirements of the Texas Register and the Office of the Secretary of State. This concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Comments or questions?
None here, Chairman.
None.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve the proposed rules for the creation of Chapter 808 regarding the Youth Driver Education Funding Program for publication in the Texas Register and for public comment as discussed by staff.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We're unanimous. This is item 10 to amend chapter 819 sexual harassment and post for public comment.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Alvarez, Commissioner Emerson, Mr. Townsend. For the record, I'm Robert Gonzalez from the Civil Rights Division. Commissioners, before you today for your consideration for approval is the policy concept relating to potential rule amendments to Chapter 819 Texas Workforce Commission Civil Rights Division. House Bill 21 and Senate Bill 45 relate to sexual harassment complaints filed against complainers. HB 21 expanded the statute of limitations for filing sexual harassment discrimination complaints, and SB 45 broadened the definition of employer as it relates to filing of a sexual harassment discrimination complaint. Currently, Chapter 819 allows complaints filed within 180 days of the alleged unlawful employment practice. New Texas Labor Code 21.0202 increases statute of limitations for filing a complaint alleging sexual harassment within 300 days of the alleged sexual harassment. The amendment to Chapter 819 will increase the statute of limitations to file a complaint alleging sexual harassment to within 300 days of the alleged unlawful employment practice. Currently, 819.11 defines an employer as having 15 or more employees. New Texas Labor Code 21.141 expands the definition of employers regarding allegations of sexual harassment to include employers with at least one employee and a person who acts directly in the interest of the employer in relation to a sexual harassment complaint. New Texas Labor Code 21.141 also includes a definition for sexual harassment. The amendments to 819.11 will expand the definition of employer and add the definition of sexual harassment to align with the definitions in New Texas Labor Code. The amendment will also include sexual harassment as an unlawful employment practice. Staff recommends amending Chapter 819 to bring in compliance with HB 21 SB 45. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any comments or questions?
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. None here, Chairman.
I wanted to ask Mr. Gonzalez how long he's worked at the agency,
I've only worked here since 2017, sir.
2017.
Yes, sir.
Good. First time presenting here.
Yes.
Good. Welcome.
Mhm.
No other questions or comments?
Normally you have a lot of questions for.
Well, he ran away. He-
for
he-
newbies.
Like, I mean, you said no other, he didn't give me a chance to ask questions or comment.
No
You
other
said
questions
no
from me?
comments. I mean, the kids would call that ghosting. I mean, that guy was gone.
That tells me some, Aaron, if you haven't, Commissioner Demerson, you haven't seen him since 2017.
Hey, he took off. Mr. Gonzalez, you want to come back up?
Apparently, I don't have any questions or comments either, commissioners.
I heard he was going to let him have it. That's what he said prior to him coming up.
Who said that?
Aaron, Commissioner Demerson, said,
Commissioner
I'm
Demerson
going to
said
ask him a
that?
lot of questions.
I'm done. With
Oh,
my-
okay.
with my question, but the chairman may not be done, so you may want to stay there.
Oh,
Given everything that's transpired, I have no questions or comments. Thank you so much
Yes, sir.
for coming and presenting.
Good
this
job.
to us.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Yes, Chairman, I move that we approve the policy concept for amending Chapter 819 to implement House Bill 21 and Senate Bill 45 of the 87th Legislature as discussed by staff and post the policy concept for comment.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We're unanimous. Let me just take a pause here in the agenda. That's good staff work to cut off questions and comments, just cut out. That does not need to go in the manual anywhere. I'm just playing with you, man. Don't take it seriously. Agenda item 11, staff has nothing under agenda item 11. This is agenda item 12, statewide initiatives. Any statewide initiative discussion, consideration, possible action regarding statewide initiatives funded with Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, TANF, AEL, childcare, or any other state level funds. I have a proposal I would like to introduce to the commission today. Like you commissioners, I've been traveling quite a bit these last several months. I've been approached by a number of employers expressing concerns about the availability of skilled workforce, often in high wage positions. These conversations really, they've been ongoing through the fall, but I began to notice a new tone starting in early December. It's continued through present day. I consulted with our TWC staff in two divisions in early December, with the workforce division and also with the employer services division here at the agency, and started looking at different ways to aid employers with their particular hiring challenges. And I think it's something we can move relatively fast on. And I think we can relieve kind of some short-term concerns, particularly volatility among employees in the workforce. But I think probably in a long-term fashion, we can really put some things in place here at TWC that can help employers and job seekers, frankly, moving on down the road. I've not been reluctant at all to talk about how I think the apprenticeship programs at TWC play a pretty critical role in the marketplace. And there's some very robust apprenticeship programs out there. Electricians and plumbers come to mind, although there are many, many apprenticeship programs in the state. I think the nature of getting licensed in Texas as an electrician, certainly as a plumber, there's a sequence of courses and training, and it's very spelled out by the state. And so those programs by nature take a number of years to develop. There's ways that can be mitigated by CT courses in high school. But I want to kind of set that concept aside, because that's not really what I've discovered is an area that we can help in, that we don't seem to be having a lot of activity in. And there are much shorter paths to very good wage, career-oriented jobs in the workforce that I think can be addressed by apprenticeship, because an apprenticeship program can be stood up in a short period of time to provide the kind of training, but also the necessary wages for someone to really improve their economic position in the state. Everything that I've talked to employers about during this time period has been related to what economists would characterize as middle skills jobs, meaning no training, no college degree, but some significant kind of training after high school. So I've had conversations with hospitals. I've had conversations with advanced manufacturing facilities in the state. I most recently had a conversation with some franchise owners that own automotive repair shops. The one factor that they all have in common is that they really are focused on finding a way to get people this advanced training. Don't need a college degree, but there's just not a lot of folks with that training out there. So they want to get them on salary and then have a sort of an expeditious way to get them the training they need. And I think that an apprenticeship program could really, where they can get that registered with the federal government, I think that provides them not just a short-term tool to address their short-term problem, but a longer-term tool to be able to address their talent needs long into the future. So these conversations, they sort of start after maybe a presentation I've given, or I've been to a school to do a JET presentation. Someone from the employer side will catch me after the meeting. They've been very casual conversations. Locally here in Austin, I was in Kerrville recently, talked to several folks there, been up in the Metroplex, talked to some folks up there. Now, I think we've done a good job with our apprenticeship expansion dollars in terms of how that process has worked. And I think from a longer term perspective, setting up some registered apprenticeships in Texas, that process as it's been pursued by TWC is likely the most orderly way to ensure we get the best possible product or the best possible programs for the state. I'm suggesting today a little bit of a change. I think we're under a little bit of a time pressure. Working with our workforce division staff, they assure me that they can administer both a combination of apprenticeship dollars and WIOA dollars working together. I think much the same as your concept for the technology workers. A combination of funds. The difference being, rather than putting out a request for proposals and taking the extreme amount of time that process takes, they assure me that there's a very much precedented way for us to administer this as a statewide program and take applications. Meaning, if your application qualifies, you could be granted funds. So there won't be a request for proposals. They'll put out application guidelines. They'll accept applications. Those applications that meet the guidelines would then be funded. The model, if you would, is it would very much match up with the Skills Development Fund model that we're using. In this proposal that I have, employers would then be able to apply directly to TWC to set up and register a registered apprenticeship program and start conducting that program. The same types of things that we've seen money spent for, both from the apprenticeship expansion and also from WIOA, would be eligible here. The reason for this change is not just the speed with which I think we need to stand up some registered apprenticeship programs in some very specific areas, but it also lets employers who have employees in multiple locations across the state, it lets them do something across their bandwidth without worrying about our geographic divisions. Our boards do a great job with this, but they're drawn into specific service areas. And I think from what I'm seeing in the marketplace right now for talent, I think employers, we may come back to that, but employers, I think at this point, need to be able to move a little more quickly. And I think working directly with TWC to establish some apprenticeship programs that have some promise for continuing into the future, I think this lets us do that. I did have staff help me with a policy concept paper.
Thank you.
It lays out probably much better than what I just did, at least more succinctly. It lays out the strategy behind it. This policy concept paper would authorize staff to stand up an apprenticeship program to set up registered apprenticeships, as I've described, where employers and others could apply directly to TWC for the funding. After consulting with staff and Commissioner Alvarez, I'll tell you publicly, when I started working on this, I did not know you were working on your nursing proposal, which I think is a very good proposal. Nursing is not something I contemplated in here, although you'll see that I mentioned nursing assistants and patient care technicians, because those were mentioned to me. I think there's, I don't know, I think that's what you're presenting. I'm not certain of that. If it is, certainly the nursing assistants, if that can be covered somewhere else, it does not have to be covered here. Patient care technicians, I might ask that it stay in here just simply because it helps us move quickly into a critical need for hospitals. And then those could be blended into whatever it is you're working on relative to nursing. I saw your summary documents from your roundtable, and I think your concept for kind of revolutionizing nursing education, it's a pretty sound one. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you want to work on relative to that. I'd already started down this road in early December, and so I learned of your work, and so I did consult with staff. I'm asking for 3.5 million in apprenticeship expansion funds and 3.5 million in WIOA funds. I honestly, I did not ask staff what the balances were in terms of multiple projects, and do want to discuss that here today. I'm prepared to make a motion and hopefully pass this today. I'd love to hear from you before we do that, just to hear your thoughts and try to understand how this folds into some other things that we're working on here at TWC.
Chairman, before I take any action on what you just proposed, I'd like for our public commenters to say a few words. I think they may be waiting for this particular agenda item, if we may, Les, and if that's okay, Chairman.
Yeah.
And then I'd like to read my discussion paper before we take any action.
Commissioners, we have 4 public commenters. When I read your name, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself and introduce yourself and proceed. Daniel King.
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. I had the privilege of attending the roundtable that was just mentioned that Commissioner Alvarez hosted on the concept of an apprenticeship program for nursing. And I think it's a pretty exciting and a doable, concept if we're able to move forward with it. As I think everyone knows, we face a critical nursing shortage in the state of Texas and actually nationwide and even globally. The shortage is projected, the shortage actually predated COVID by many, many years and has been getting worse. And then COVID has exacerbated the shortage. And it's currently projected to actually get worse with different surveys showing that a high percentage of nurses are burned out, maybe want to retire early, look for something different to do. So obviously this affects patient care, it affects life, safety, health, and these kind of areas. In looking at, so the nursing shortage and trying to find ways to resolve this is something I've been looking at for quite a while. And in looking at the state data, one potential pool, there's actually, according to state data, there's actually more LVNs than are needed. And of course, a big shortage of RNs, registered nurses. And I can see an apprenticeship program working very, very well, in particular for, LVNs. And kind of going back to the chairman's comments, you can stair step from PCT to LVN and then maybe LVN to RN. But one of the challenges with LVNs in trying to become RNs is LVNs usually, many times, let's say they're employed, they're supporting their family. Most of the RN programs like LVN to ADN and so forth are pretty intense. And so typically they find themselves unable to work at all, or maybe just a little bit of part-time work. And so that often serves as a barrier where they may have to choose between supporting their family and going on to school. Through an apprenticeship program, they could get, paid to the apprenticeship. The LVNs, if they've been at the LVN work for a number of years, they have already, many times they have very good skills. So it'd be a matter of them through an apprenticeship program, raising their skill and knowledge level to that of an RN, and possibly a partnership between, a college for some of the academic and a healthcare setting such as a hospital, and providing that paid apprenticeship program. And I think this creates just another viable route that will take some individuals who have a high interest in becoming a registered nurse and already have some pretty good clinical background, but to be able to go through a paid apprenticeship, be paid to learn and earn, and meet their needs in terms of supporting their family and moving themselves forward, but meet our state's needs, meet our patients' needs, and improve the quality of life and healthcare for our citizens. So I just wanted to comment that I think if the details can be worked through with, then and the approvals from the appropriate agencies can be gotten, I think it's presents a very exciting opportunity to meet our challenge in this field.
Thank you. We have Mark Sherry.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I find interesting a recent survey by one of our most professional societies, the American College of Healthcare Executives, very recently ranked for the first time in nearly 20 years that staffing has been rated as a higher concern than financial challenges in healthcare. Personnel shortages of all time have ranked as the #1 problem. And in fact, 94% of the CEOs that have been surveyed state that the lack of RNs was the most pressing staffing issues in their hospitals and of which they face today. The need, I believe, for innovative action is undeniable. Although this is just one tool in our recruitment and retention toolboxes, I'm increasingly convinced that helping us grow our own talent is a positive approach. All registered apprenticeships, if utilized strategically, promise a win-win situation to help fill critical staffing shortages. Appreciate your time and thank you for letting me comment today.
Thank you. Ms. Coronado Garcia.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Alvarez, and Commissioner Demerson. My name is Aida Coronado Garcia. I'm a family nurse practitioner and Chief Operating Officer for DHR Health. And thank you for allowing us to be here today. First of all, I wanted to thank Commissioner Alvarez for the roundtable event that we had in Austin, which I found was very, very helpful in regards to the registered apprenticeship for the nursing program initiative that we've been discussing for about a year now. I just want to make sure to let you all know that DHR is supportive of this. Thank you for allowing the stakeholders to be part of this initiative, and DHR Health in Edinburgh and Brownsville is here to support this, as we've lost, probably about 50% of our staff with the nursing shortage. So I'm just happy to be here, and just want to make sure that we're here to support this, and we are in agreement with this. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Paul Fletcher.
Good morning, Chair Daniel, Commissioner Demerson, and Commissioner Alvarez. For the record, my name is Paul Fletcher, and I'm the CEO for Workforce Solutions Rural Capital Area. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on an important subject. My comments this morning are directed towards the staffing shortage we are experiencing in the healthcare industry. Even prior to COVID, we were seeing staff deficits in critical healthcare positions, such as registered nurses, and the shortages became even worse during COVID, as staff were in such great demand and they were overworked and overstressed. I've seen statistics that predict a shortage of 57,000 registered nurses in the next 10 years, and that's just in Texas. The current academic educational system did not have enough capacity prior to COVID and still does not have the capacity needed to produce the number of RNs and other healthcare staff that will be needed today and for the future. We have seen earn and learn type systems such as apprenticeship work in other industries to produce the trained and skilled talent that they require, and we should look at a work-based solution for healthcare as well to supplement the number of trained RNs and other skilled talent that is currently being produced by the academic and educational system alone. The intent is not to dilute the training that is required to be a skilled healthcare professional, but to build off the existing foundation to provide upskilling opportunities for a new audience and a deeper talent pool for the industry. We have seen some proven models that do this work in other parts of the country, and we should seriously consider designing such a system for Texas that can supplement the numbers of staff needed while providing work-based earn and learn opportunities. These work-based opportunities will help attract a different audience to this industry, since not everyone can stop earning to learn a new profession. As we build this system for Texas, we should learn from the experiences of others that have tried a similar solution and be sure to incorporate guidance from the healthcare industry, academia, and licensing to make sure we create a system that produces the skilled talent the industry needs. Finally, we should be cautious as we proceed to make certain that the system we build does not have unintended consequences by continually checking in on the training being delivered, the content being mastered, and being certain that the talent supply going to the healthcare industry meets that industry's needs. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning.
Chairman, if I may proceed, and I'd like to read out my discussion paper. Everything that I'm going to read to you is based on what I shared with you all last week. And if I may, for the record, on January 27, 2022, Commissioner Alvarez, myself, Commissioner representing labor, convened a meeting with industry partners, apprenticeship staff, and workforce development staff at the request of Baylor Scott and White and Doctors Hospital Renaissance to discuss their staffing needs. This discussion paper reflects this discussion held at that meeting and is being brought forward, as you can tell by today's meeting. Over the past 10 years, registered nurses have been the top job posting in Texas. In 2001, the 77th Texas Legislature passed Senate Bill 572 Nursing Shortage Act, which established a program to increase both student enrollment in nursing education programs and the number of nursing school facilities, or faculty, I should say. Subsequent rider language has provided funding to institutions of higher education toward this effort. For this biennium, the legislature appropriated approximately $18 million to continue to address these shortages. These discussions have also been taking place with legislators and those people that were the authors of this bill. In October of 2020, a Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board work group study indicated that pre-registered nurses, RN, licensure student admissions. We met with some of the stakeholders at Texas A&M University while we were there. Increased from 10,856 in academia year 2008 to 2009 to 16,284 in academic year 2017, 2018, a 50% increase. During that same time, though, qualified applicants not admitted to the RN program increased from 8,957 to 12,916, 44.2% increase of people eligible to attend a nursing program, but were unfortunately not able to. Certainly a capacity building issue. In 2020, the Texas Center for Nursing Workforce Studies predicted that Texas would have a deficit by 2032, just 10 years from now, of 57,012 registered nurses in demand. Given the shortages the state is experiencing now, the shortages expected for the future, and the clear need to move more students to RN programs, it is an opportune time to find innovative approaches for meeting this critical need. These were proposed initiatives in the report. One such approach is to develop a statewide initiative for the healthcare industry to increase the number of career pathway opportunities to registered apprenticeship to ultimately increase the number of RNs in the state. The statewide healthcare registered apprenticeship initiative will be designed to offer employers the innovative approach to hiring and training future nurses and healthcare staff, and to expand opportunities for students who wish to pursue career pathways to registered nurse and other healthcare fields. The statewide initiative will be a collaborative effort in which TWC staff will work together to ensure and expedite application process, coordinate across multiple workforce areas, streamline management of multiple funding streams. While some elements of the statewide initiatives will be developed in response to stakeholder feedback, the following may be considered as fundamental items: providing paid RN clinicals, number one on the agenda. Providing paid RN clinicals, which is not being done now. Convening workshops that include subject matter experts representing healthcare providers, higher education, and workforce to explore ways to support pathways credentialing for certified nurse assistant, licensed vocational nurse, associate degree in nursing to registered nurse, and registered nurse to Bachelor of Science in Nursing. Identifying, mapping, and incorporating credentialing, relevant and the value of healthcare industry that are stackable and portable. For example, phlebotomy, and developing articulated crosswalks, as we know through the tri-agency's efforts, thereby enabling students who have completed registered apprenticeship programs to earn college credit, like we do now with the crosswalk that was established in 2018. Staff presents for consideration and discussion the concepts above, which you can see as discussed. In addition, it is proposed that the following funds and amounts be used for the statewide healthcare registered apprenticeship initiative. I asked that we use, before I reference how much money I'd like to ask, I'm also going to give you a copy of what I was provided by our financial officer as far as commission reserve. On our WIOA statewide commission reserve, we have $12,351,011 available. Of this, I would like to use $10 million we owe statewide. And I'd like to ask that, which, by the way, I think that I wrote down some notes here. I want to say that the folks that represent the apprenticeship department, starting with Desi Holmes, Carrie, and others that are involved in that department, have done an excellent job with the grant expansion that we have been awarded from Department of Labor. It's certainly evident because of the number of rounds that we've received it. We not only received one of the highest amounts, but we've been recognized from DOL for the hard work that we've done and how innovative we've been able to do. These conversations that I've had with stakeholders have been taking place, as you can tell, prior to the legislative session. Before the legislative session, when I asked for an LAR to increase the number of, or to even talk to the legislature about pre-apprenticeship funding or registered apprenticeship funding, those discussions were taking place prior to the legislative session. As you can tell, this past session, we were very fortunate that a lot of apprenticeship programs or workforce development initiatives were actually passed. And I can assure you that this upcoming legislative session, by conversations that I've had with members, have said that workforce and apprenticeship is going to be high on their agenda, as it was this past session. So again, thank you to Desi and all the work that she's done. With that said, I'm also asking that 5 million from from DOL apprenticeship expansion be used to pay for up to 2,000 per apprentice based on the funding availability. And so I know that this was an action item. I have seen your discussion paper, Chairman. I certainly know, I have no doubt that we need to have, and I know at yesterday's discussion that you had with TxDOT, you indicated the value of apprenticeship, and I certainly value that, and thank you for that, as this is a part of our workforce. I also know that there are the True Initiative by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board is a grant designed to accelerate workforce training credentialing opportunities urgently needed for economic recovery due to COVID pandemic and the future competitive workforce in Texas. Certifications are to be awarded. A consortium will be developed for pathways in forklift operators, a certified logistics, which I see is listed here, is what you've listed out. And all of this is while they earn and learn and receiving certifications. This is a consortium with Texas Southmost College, University of Houston Community College, and of course, the folks there in the area. So I can see that these initiatives that you've laid out are certainly of value to everybody around the state, not just South Texas. But again, I do know that I rolled this out last week. I would ask before we take any action on yours that I'm ready to make a motion that we approve the discussion paper in my initiative to continue this thing that we've been working on for certainly a long time on developing this apprenticeship nurse, which includes, as referenced earlier, the certified nurse assistants, licensed vocational nurse, associate degree in nursing to a registered nurse, and registered nurse to a Bachelor of Science. Those are my remarks, and I'm ready to make a motion.
What's our balance right now in the registered apprenticeship expansion dollars? It's 5 total.
I understand it to be 5 million, Chairman. 5 million registered apprenticeship.
And is this
expansion.
the most up-to-date number on the WIO commission reserve?
The number that Chris provided me this morning was 12 million in the 2022 reserve balance for WIOA, and then the estimate is showing 11.3 million for the 2023. Of course, the commissioners haven't taken up the 2023 budget. I will note, though, there was about 5 million of that 11 million for next year that is assumed not to necessarily go forward, but the commission hasn't taken action on those initiatives. So just want to point that out. But those were the numbers. 23, if you assume that we won't continue those 2023 initiatives, or I guess that would be 18
All
million.
right, say it to me again. What's available right now?
12 million in 2022. And 2022. And then 5 million in the apprenticeship expansion. So that would be 17
Okay.
for 2020.
Commissioner, I'm in favor of your nursing strategy. I'm not in favor of putting all the available funds into this single strategy. Couple things we could do here. We could table both of these, look for ways to scale these up into future years. We can table both of these and come back. Let us all think about it and come back for a different perhaps funding strategy, but obviously these are in competition for all the available funds on the apprenticeship expansion money. And we could probably make it work on the WIOA funds based on what's available right now. I think it's the apprenticeship expansion money that's going to be the limiting factor. Probably for me, the better bet would be to table them both and look at the dollars and try to figure out what compromises can be made on the dollars and how these can be scaled up over time.
Chairman, if I may add, so I'm looking at your initiative, which I said, I have no doubt that industry is looking for this. I certainly know that other agencies are doing pretty much similar to what you've proposed, but I'm okay with what you've laid out. Let me remind everyone that we have $12 million, and we have, that we need to start looking at ways to spend this money. And I've been informed that there are monies that I don't want to see just released out to the board just for the sake of, because we didn't put an initiative. I'd be willing to, I just asked that we have been working closely with Department of Labor, and I'm not sure of the other offices as well, because unfortunately we don't get a chance to speak. But I would like to commit the 5 million to the initiative that I've rolled out, because this is a really good reflection of what this expansion grant should be used for. The discussions that we've had with the Department of Labor and the folks in Washington, they're excited about how we're going to be using this expansion grant, given the opportunity to do so. You know, I could take less on the WIOA funding because I don't know how much it costs for clinicals. I'd go down to 5 million on the clinicals rather than the 10. But I just asked for the record that the expansion money that we've worked really hard on for years since we first started getting this award, that it all be dedicated to this apprenticeship nursing expansion grant. Again, because of the conversations we've had, my decision will be to keep the 5 million for this initiative that we're rolling out. And if you want to use the WIOA, I'd be okay with that. I'd be willing to even go less on my 10 million to the 5 million. We could work with that. And certainly work with the institutions that we've been working with on this initiative to have paid clinicals and to come up with, there's some work that we need to do, and that is the articulation with Sanjag, just like we did with stakeholders. So those conversations are already taking place. We were very fortunate that last time we had Rex Peoples, unfortunately, who's passed since, worked with Dr. Sally Janes, and we articulated this program. And we had this conversation at ACC when many of the folks were there, didn't know that there was already an articulation agreement with the colleges and the apprenticeship schools. So there is something already in place that we've been working on since 2017. So I'd be willing to negotiate handling the registered apprenticeship nurse with my initiative, asking for all $5 million of the apprenticeship expansion money, and asking less of the WIOA, which would give a balance of $7 million that you could work with if you'd be interested in that.
Unfortunately, I think the apprenticeship dollars are key to my effort. I don't see leaving this many employers stranded just simply because we want to rush through a decision today. My preference would be to table this and take a hard look at this, understand the money, and move forward at a later date.
Well, since I just got your discussion paper, I'm not ready to take action like you said. I'll table it, but I'm ready for mine.
I move to table both concepts to a future meeting.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. We need to come to a resolve on, the dollar amount. So let me understand this, the 5 million DOL that we have there, that we're looking at allocating. You need, Chairman, your initiative, the 3.5 DOL apprenticeship expansion. For what you're trying to accomplish, you need 3.5 in that particular area. Would you be able to use WIOA, other monies in that area?
I don't know. I need to explore that.
Okay. Yes.
I don't think so, but let me confirm.
Okay. All right.
We have a motion on the table to table both issues.
I'm in disagreement on that.
Yeah. So to take, I thought you were in agreement with tabling.
Nope. I'm ready to take action on mine.
Okay.
I've changed the amount to the $5 million of DOL expansion and $5 million of WIOA, leaving a balance of 7 million, more than half.
Yeah. And so what happens there is if we allocate the entire 5 million for DOL, then the chairman's initiative, the 3.5 that he's looking at, we're not sure we can use the
We can use the WIOA. We can use.
Do we have anybody, staff, or
WIOA.
anybody, can somebody address that? Because
We can use it for this initiative that's been laid out by the chairman.
Because
I know that because we've been working on this for a long
yeah,
time.
if you're reducing yours from 10 to 5, then that means we have monies available. But we need to be clear, Mr. Chairman, if that works for what you're trying to do with your expansion.
We have policy items next week. Let's table it and bring it back next week, and we'll have the answers to those questions.
Courtney, you can ask him tonight if you'd like, if you want. Could we use WIOA funding to pay for the initiatives rolled out by Chairman Daniel? Does it necessarily include, unless that's the preference of that initiative to use? that?
Courtney Arbor, Workforce Division. These are concepts at this point, and while they both have some level of detail, I'm not sure I can tell you exactly if there is anything in either paper that can't be funded with WIOA. You're aware that WIOA requires the Pearl eligibility for customers. The apprenticeship expansion funds offers a little bit more flexibility, while those expansion grants also have contractual requirements on the numbers served. So we need to balance out how those funds are used to serve trainees while also building programs. So as far as a list, likely everything is allowable under both, but it's a little bit of a balancing act when you look at the grant requirements and the numbers that we need to serve through the grant.
Again, I only asked that because I'm reading out exactly what was in the local paper regarding what the hiring coordinating board was using to fund logistics, mechanics, forklift operators, exactly some of the things that I see rolled out here. And so I know that WIOA funding can be used, at least our funding can be used to pay for very similar programs. And again, the reason that I mentioned this, Chairman, is because the articulation agreements that we have, everything seems to be in place with, and I certainly understand your concern, but they already seem to be in place. It's just a matter of how we're going to use this money to expand in something that's never been done. Yes, we gave out a report at the roundtable discussion of what Minnesota was doing, but Minnesota didn't go through the Department of Labor to get this done. We're going through the Department of Labor, and I just certainly would like to use the funding that we have available, the 5 million, to be able to do this, which we were only allocated 10 million this last round. So, and you can, and as you've noticed, we have, come up with programs that were never in existence before because of the creativity of Desi and her team. So that's the only reason why I bring that up. I know that these, like I said, Chairman, I think that what you brought forth, considering I'm just seeing it for the first time, is very similar to what's already other agencies are doing. I'm certainly in agreement with it. I'm just asking that we use the 5 million from the expansion. That's all I say. I don't know if Commissioner Demerson's met with employers to have the same discussion.
Well, the employers have not talked about any of these concepts. I was on record last week applauding the fact that Baylor Scott and White, Mark Sherry, and DHR had come. And so I appreciate the fact that the chairman was talking about employers today. I've not had an opportunity to visit with the stakeholder groups that I normally talk with about any of the initiatives aside from the one that you pushed forward last week. And I think both initiatives are fine. I always say employers have another option, it's another tool in their in the toolbox for them to use. And I think both of these efforts fit right into the need of having employees at the locations. And so both initiatives are good. Where we are is with the decision points right now. And so when you're bringing something a little bit late in the game, I'd say, it does lead to wanting more discussions and more time to look at this thing, to look over it with staff. And so if we're clear based on what Courtney has provided in terms of the balances, if we're looking at trying to make decisions today, then we're going to have to resolve the issues around the DOL apprenticeship expansion part. One party wants 5 million, the other party wants 3.5 million. We only have 5 million. And so we need to figure out where we're going to go there. Can we use WIOA statewide monies to take care of either your portion of the DOL apprenticeship expansion or the chairman's portion of the apprenticeship expansion? If that money can be used in both spots, then let's start splitting through so that we can get to where we're both trying to go if we're in a position to do that.
Look, this is the last thing I'm going to say regarding this issue. The expansion grant is for innovative ways to use the money for exactly what we're rolling out here on these registered nurses, this program that we have laid out in front of you. It's not to continue to train folks that are in those trades that we already have. The expansion grant paid for the brewmaster course. It paid for the apprenticeship daycare. I mean, these professionals that are there that are now receiving articulation. There's an articulation agreement with Tarleton State. This is an innovative way with your support that we can actually use the $5 million to actually implement a plan that's not been developed anywhere in the country, that we will be setting a model for how we are going to be training nurses using the expansion grant. And 5 million doesn't seem like a lot. I mean, it seems like a lot of money, but when you look at this, it's perfect because because of the need that's out there and because of how innovative that our team has been here at TWC, it's only appropriate that we use this money for initiatives like this that don't exist anywhere else in the country like we've done in the past. If you look at what we've done and rolled out, it's been programs in making beer for transitioning veterans, or for those individuals that were homeless, or those individuals that were single parents that received a credential thanks to Judy McDonald and the Fort Worth Board that allowed those individuals to receive not only an apprenticeship certification as far as college, apprenticeship certifications, but also college credit. That's what we're going to do here. But any less money, I think, on this it just wouldn't be the same, because like I said, our goal here is to prove to everyone around the country that Texas is going to use the money, and who knows, at the next round we're going to be able to get more money. And some of the initiatives that you've laid out, Chairman, I certainly appreciate those, and I think they're great initiatives. But let's think of something that's not been done before.
I don't, Courtney's answer is inconclusive at best. I don't think a week's going to make a difference. Neither one of these are ready to roll out. We should table these for a week and bring them back next week with all the facts at our fingertips.
Again, my vote is not to do that and take action on my agenda.
So I have a motion pending to table both until next week. If there's a second, we'll proceed with that.
I think I'd like us to discuss a little bit more. That's about like, because I think both of the motion, both of the proposals are worth it. One wants, I'm just going to state it again, one with 5 million, the other with 3.5 million. And then maybe opportunities to use WIOA statewide in those areas. If we can do that, if we're looking at trying to get something approved, it seems like, Commissioner Alvarez, you're ready to take action today.
I'm ready to take action today.
In a week, would a week do anything?
Commissioners, may I introduce one other fact that might be helpful to you as you make your decision? We have an RFA that is scheduled to go out this week with expansion grant dollars that has been in our original statement of work for this grant for several months. It is intended to expand apprenticeship opportunities to new industries, or expand existing to new demographics and that kind of thing. It's a $3 million RFA that was part of our statement of work when we were awarded the grant. We very likely can approach DOL about a change to the statement of work if you'd like to repurpose that 3 million as part of the initiatives you're discussing today.
I think we would need a week to discuss that with DOL. And we would want to know for sure that we can do that. I don't want to violate our agreement.
Okay.
And so the options are either to table or to push forth an initiative.
That's correct.
Kind of where we are. So based on what we've heard, Mr. Chairman, you're not of the opinion with WIA that we can move that money into that.
I just don't know. I'm willing to work toward that end. I think both of these are worthwhile projects and we should find a way to do both of them. I just think we need a few more days to get that done.
And Commissioner Alvarez, you need the entire 5 million to carry out your.
Again, it just sends a message to Department of Labor. And I know that the initiatives that have been rolled out could be used with WIOA funding. And we've done our homework on that stuff. I mean, we've been working on this for a long time. I mean, we had private meetings at the conference regarding healthcare professionals that were there. Prior to that, prior to the session with the DHR folks in South Texas College. Again, my whole purpose is just being innovative. Registered nursing, give everybody a message around the state, around the country. We're going to be the first to do it.
So I know you've been working on the apprenticeship for quite some time. And so this DOL expansion expansion grant. In your comments with ACC and the others, is this conversation going a number of years back?
Oh my God, we've been working on this just like reentry. I mean, these aren't just things that we just did. We've been having stakeholder meetings. Like I said, at state conference, we had that reserve room that both of you were able to use. We've had conversations with folks in person even during the pandemic regarding this. We've been to talk to the folks at Department of Labor multiple times.
I'm sure. I want to visit with my team for a second. So give me about
Recess?
Recess real quick. Brian, thank you.
Okay, we're back in session. We have a motion pending for a second to table both of these items until the next commission meeting.
All right, Mr. Chairman, before I second the motion, I want to state a few things here. Again, both proposals I think are very good proposals from this standpoint. It appears that Commissioner Alvarez, based on the comments that he's been working in this apprenticeship expansion area for quite some time. in the 5 million that he's requesting. I'm going to support that. However, I want to visit with my stakeholders and visit with the staff and the team. We need time to discuss both initiatives. I had questions about your proposal in regards to other industries and the like. And I think there's some things that we can look at there. I do hope that we're in a position to also find out a little bit more on the WIOA statewide funding, and if that's in a position to be utilized towards expansion, apprenticeship expansions, then we're in a position to do that as well. But emphatically, I want to support what Commissioner Alvarez is allocating towards the DOL apprenticeship expansion, but want to also take the time to visit with the stakeholders to do that. And so I'll second that motion to table, and then we'll come back for a vote next week.
All right, it's been moved second to the table. The motion bring it back next week. We've had considerable discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
All right, it's two ayes, 1 nay. Motion carries. We'll bring this back next week. Mr. Truman, be sure this is on the agenda for next week, that it be brought back. There's nothing for staff to report under agenda item 13, agenda item 14, board nominations. It's discussion stage possible action regarding approval of local workforce development board nominees.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Townsend. For the record, Cherie Dudley with the Workforce Development Division. For your consideration this morning, we have workforce board nominations for Cameron County, Deep East Texas, Greater Dallas, Rural Capital Area, South Plains, and Southeast Texas. Staff seeks guidance on the presented nominees, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Any comments or questions?
None here.
None.
Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve board nominees for Cameron County, Deep East Texas, Greater Dallas, Rural Capital Area, South Plains, and Southeast Texas.
Second.
It's been moved second. We're unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Legislative report.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners and Mr. Townsend. For the record, Michael Brick, Governmental Relations. As you all are aware, the federal government is currently funded through next Friday, February the 18th. U.S. House and Senate appropriation leaders are continue to negotiate top-line spending amounts for funding the remainder of the current federal fiscal year. While congressional leaders are reporting that they are close to an agreement on these funding levels, they are also discussing the need for a short-term continuing resolution to give appropriators time to complete these negotiations and for the U.S. House and Senate to take action on a full appropriations package. Therefore, yesterday, U.S. House leaders introduced H.R. 6617, the Further Additional Extending Government Funding Act. This measure would extend federal government funding through March 11th of 2022. And the U.S. House is expected to take a vote on this measure later this afternoon. This concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Any comments or questions?
None here, Chairman.
None.
Thank you.
Thank you. Not today. And this is like you just have a few weeks to get this done. All right. Is there any other business come before the commission?
Chairman, I'd just like to recognize that this is CTE's month, in observance of CTE month, and also from February 1st to March 1st is also, we are acknowledging Black History Month. So I'd like to just recognize, place on the record, the two things that I just stated.
Have we, Commissioner, have we traditionally done like media outreach or something like that with regard to CTE month?
No, the only thing that we have, Chairman, is of course, the House resolution, and that's just acknowledging CTE signing day, but nothing for the agency to acknowledge this.
Would there be objection to asking staff to initiate some sort of media outreach with regard to CTE month?
I think it's an excellent idea, sir.
Agree.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Then we're saying it to adjourn. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Now, we used to do the Black History